Hey guys, it's Jacob from Junior Pastor Journeys. In today's video, we will be doing a bookshelf tour. As you can see, I actually don't have that many books, at least compared to other bookshelf tours around YouTube, but I'm planning to make this video again in the future to kind of show you guys how my collection will grow. For a book collection to be considered a library, you need about 500 to 1,000 books. From what I've counted so far, I think I have about 50 to 75, but I'll get there eventually. I actually haven't read most of these books, but I think it's always better to have a library of unread books rather than read books. If you guys have any book recommendations, please leave it in the comment section. Also, please like, subscribe, and share. Also, shout out to my cameraman, Daniel. Please say hi. All right, now let's go and take a look. All right, we're going to be starting on this shelf here. So this shelf is dedicated to C.S. Lewis. We have a statue of a lion here, and we're going to be starting from left to right. So we have C.S. Lewis, a companion guide, the essentials of C.S. Lewis, miracles, the problem with pain, Mere Christianity. All right, we have here Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. I actually read this book a couple years back, but I never got to finishing it. Many people have argued that this is probably one of the best starter books for apologetics. This has been a really good foundation for many people, and from what I've read, at least, I certainly agree. The Great Divorce, Surprised by Joy, The Four Loves, Letters to Malcolm, The Abolition of Man, and A Grief Observed. Oh, thank you. All right, the next book we have here is A Grief Observed by C.S. Lewis. So this is a book I haven't read yet, but it was recommended to me by the YouTube channel Truth Unites by Dr. Gavin Ortlund. This book was actually originally written under a pseudonym by Lewis after the death of his wife. Many people couldn't believe that Lewis actually wrote this book because it just was so different from all the other books that he had written before. This book records Lewis's thoughts in the aftermath as he tries to reconcile the loss of his wife. It really does show a different perspective on Lewis and shows that even believers, strong believers, at the end of their life, will have times where they will question God and faith in him. This isn't a book. Well, anyways, this would have been the Screwtape letters by C.S. Lewis as well. I actually don't have the book with me on set right now, as I left it at home. I'm currently reading it with my friend Bill. Shout out to Bill, if you're watching. So, the Screwtape letters is one of my favorite books ever, honestly. I believe it to be one of the most in-depth looks into spiritual warfare, as it is written from the perspective of the enemy itself, Screwtape, the demon. Right? I've actually learned so much about temptation and how the enemy works, and how the enemy can use even the most basic things, like hunger, to lead you away from God. This is a book that I definitely recommend reading every single year. Going down to the next shelf, we have this is for Timothy Keller. We have a bridge here. Starting from left to right, we have The Prodigal Prophet, Rediscovering Jonah, The Prodigal God. All right, thank you. The next book we have here is The Prodigal God, Recovering the Heart of the Christian Faith by Timothy Keller. My church did a book club on this about 3-ish years ago, and we really enjoyed it. Keller takes a very modern perspective on the parable of the prodigal son and connects it to how there are many people in the church today that are just like the two sons. The reasons for God, Jesus the King, and the meaning of marriage. All right, the next book we have here is The Meaning of Marriage, Facing the Complexities of Commitment from the Wisdom of God by Timothy Keller and Kathy Keller. I read this book about a year ago, but I only got through halfway through because I just got really busy with school. It wasn't really bad or anything, I just got really busy. But I really hope to make my way back to it because from what I read at least, I really did learn a lot. Keller describes different aspects of marriage through the Christian lens. And one concept I really liked was when Keller discusses the state of romantic love in the modern world and how our society has distorted romantic love in a way where eventually significant others see each other as God. And that's something that you can't really do. Keller really emphasizes the roots of marriage that it has in Christianity and connects it to the gospel. Going down here, we have some books by St. Augustine on the Trinity, City of God, Confessions, Letters to the Churches by Ignatius of Antioch, St. Anselm's Basic Writings, Machiavelli's The Prince, Blaise Pascal's Pensées, the Poems of St. John of the Cross, a counseling book. Going down, we have a shelf. Kind of have a lot of denominational stuff, a lot of Roman Catholic, a little bit of Protestantism here and there. So starting here, we have Why We're Catholic by Trent Horn, Counterfeit Christ by Horn, Persuasive Pro-Life Horn, Rome Sweet Home by Scott Hahn, Jimmy Akin's The Fathers Know Best, also Akin, The Bible is a Catholic Book, Letters to a Young Catholic, The Case for Catholicism by Horn. All right, the next book we have here is The Case for Catholicism, Answers to Classic and Contemporary Protestant Objections by Trent Horn. For all you Council of Trent podcast fans out there, I can already hear his theme song coming in. But I think I read this book about 3 years ago in my senior year of high school. Trent makes some excellent arguments and clears up a lot of misconceptions about the Catholic faith. But I haven't read through this book, but I use it more for a reference guide to certain arguments whenever it kind of comes back into circle. For example, the Immaculate Conception or the arguments for the papacy. And I use this book as a reference because when I did read through it, some of the concepts were kind of boring. For example, his arguments for the Deuterocanonical. But overall, a very good book on Catholicism. The Early Church, the Church and the Roman Empire, Canon Law Explained, a copy of the Catechism of the Catholic Church, How to Be Happy by Matt Farad, Truly Divine and Truly Human, Christian Confessions, the 95 Theses, and Other Writings, and Debating Calvinism by James White and Dave Hunt. Going down here, we have a lot of apologetic stuff. So we have More Than a Carpenter by Sean and Josh McDowell. All right, the next book we have here is More Than a Carpenter by Josh McDowell and Sean McDowell. This was a really fun book. Shout out to Chase Rodriguez if you're watching this for recommending this book a couple years back. This was a really great introduction to Christian apologetics. It covers kind of the landscape of apologetics from the gospel reliability to new atheism to are science and faith compatible. I would really recommend this book as a first recommendation to someone who wants to learn more about apologetics. Holy Sexuality and the Gospel by Christopher Yuan. All right, the next book we have here is Holy Sexuality and the Gospel. Sex, Desires, and Relationships Shaped by God's Grand Story by Christopher Yuan. I actually had the privilege to listen to Christopher speak at the 2023 Reality Apologetics Conference, hosted by To Stand to Reason at Crossroads Bible Church. For me, at least, it had to be one of the best testimonies I've ever heard of someone coming to Christ. In his testimony, he talks about his homosexual past. And one of the things that he did was, during his testimony, he would actually show pictures on the screen of him at like clubs and doing stuff. And it really cemented his point. I remember the whole audience, including my church mates, were all on the edge of their seats. So one thing I really liked about this book is he talks about how we should interact and talk with people who are Christian, but also have homosexual attractions and how we should deal with that. And even though this book focuses on homosexuality, I equally enjoyed the parts where he talks about marriage and heterosexual relationships. Two ideas that I really liked about this book is that as Christians, we shouldn't be pushing the idea of heterosexuality, but rather the biblical concept of holy sexuality. Second, before we start a relationship, we need to become whole in Christ before we become one with another, with our future spouse. Faith and Rationality by Plantinga and Wolfenstoff, Warrant and Christian Belief by Plantinga, The Majesty of Reason by Joseph C. Smid, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Norman Geisler and Frank Turk, Jesus Among Other Gods by Ravi Zacharias, The Christian God by Richard Swinburne, The Case for Faith, The Case for Grace, and The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel, Tactics by Greg Kokel, Unbelievable by Justin Brierley, Answering Atheism, also by Trent Horn, Why God Makes Sense in a World That Doesn't by Gavin Ortlund, How Reason Can Lead to God by Joshua Rasmussen, On Guard by William Lane Craig, and Cold Case Christianity by J. Warner Wall. All right, we're going to go to this bookshelf here. I actually ran out of bookshelf room, so this is where the complete works of Francis Schaeffer are. I have his 5-volume set on all his works. Going here, we have a lot of my academic books and a lot of random books that I don't really know what to do with. So we have Philosophical Foundations for a Christian Worldview by J.P. Moreland and William Lane Craig, The Blackwell Companion in Natural Theology, The Writings in the New Testament by Timothy Johnson, Jesus Through Middle Eastern Eyes, The Institute of Christian Religion by John Calvin, The Mind-Body Problem, a complete first aid pocket guide, The Philosophical Theology and Christian Doctrine, The Body Broken, and Wayne Grudem's Systematic Theology. All right, next, going to this shelf here, we have two books by Bart Ehrman, Misquoting Jesus and God's Problem, The Case for the Resurrection of Jesus Christ by Gary Habermas and Mike Licona, The Sun Rises, The Historical Evidence for the Resurrection by William Lane Craig, The Forgotten Trinity by James White, The Canterbury Tales, The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, also The Divine Comedy, but Volume 1, The Inferno, Explicit Gospel by Matt Chandler, The Christian Atheist by Greg Groeschel, Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus by Nabeel Qureshi. Oh. All right, the next book we have here is Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus, A Devout Muslim Encounters Christianity by Nabeel Qureshi. I read this about a couple years ago, and I really enjoyed it. This is essentially Nabeel's journey from Islam to the Christian faith. What I really liked about this book is that Nabeel connects a lot of concepts and doctrines from Islam with his experiences growing up, through the experiences with his family, his friends, and his religious life. Nabeel doesn't really bash his former faith, but rather shows genuine remorse about the loss of his heritage. You can really tell that Nabeel tries to find every reason to reject Christianity and to preserve his faith. Because for Nabeel, he knows that rejecting Islam means rejecting his family, because when he comes out as Christian, his family will lose so much reputation. Overall, a really great book for those who want to understand Islam more, but in a way that is very charitable and very informative. Remembering Satan by Lauren Wright. Dark Journey, Deep Grace, Roy Ratcliff. Is that a Beyblade? No, it's Dark Journey, Deep Grace by Roy Ratcliff. Jeffrey Dahmer's Story of Faith. Did you know that near the end of his life, Jeffrey Dahmer supposedly became a Christian? Is this a story you can believe? This book takes an exploration into that question. Dark Journey, Deep Grace is written in the perspective of Dahmer's pastor, Roy Ratcliff. Dahmer in prison was sent pamphlets about creationism from his parents, which would eventually lead him to the Christian faith. Dahmer would eventually call Roy and would ask him if he could be baptized. This request was initially private, but was leaked, and you can kind of see that in the book. The conversations between the two when they're in prison is just so raw, and it makes the curious reader wonder if Dahmer is truly genuine. Overall, this book was an interesting read and has the reader themselves decide if Dahmer was truly true to his Christian faith. The Purpose of Driven Life by Rick Warren, Shadows of the Almighty, The Heart of the Reformation, and these two books by Andrew Murray. All right, going to this bookshelf here, we have these two big books, The Works of Jonathan Edwards, a 2-volume series. We also have some other Jonathan Edwards books here, kind of more of the mini versions. So we have The Good Life, True Christianity, On Duty, Lovers of God, and On Heaven and Hell. Here I have these answer books by R.C. Sproul. So he kind of goes through a bunch of questions that someone might have about the Christian faith, such as, can I know God's will? What is the gospel? Who is Jesus? All right. Over here, we have a lot of Bible study guides that I've been using for my Bible study group. So we have here Jen Wilkins' God of Creation, God of Covenant, God of Deliverance. We have here Chasing Love by Sean McDowell, and also Jen Wilkins' Sermon on the Mount. All right, going down, we have a 3-volume set of the Dialogues of Plato, The Art of War, The Diary of Anne Frank, Why I Stand by Jonathan Isaac. All right, so the next book we have here is Why I Stand by Jonathan Isaac. Many of you may know of the story back in 2020 when Jonathan Isaac stood during the national anthem while everybody else on his team kneeled during the 2020 NBA bubble. And as a result, a lot of controversy ensued as he was accused of a lot of anti-BLM sentiments. But this book Jonathan wrote is actually a clarification of that statement, showing that his stand was much more than just politics. Isaac, in this book, goes through his testimony to Christ up to this point and makes it clear that his stand wasn't about BLM or politics for that matter. In his own words, there is a lot more to this than we think. That the solution to this crisis we have isn't this, but rather the love of Christ. The Republic, also by Plato. The Sunflower on the Possibilities and Limits of Forgiveness. What Everybody is Saying by Joe Navarro. Matt Fradd's The Porn Myth, Sam Harris on Free Will, All Quiet on the Western Front, The Giver, The Lost World of Genesis by John Walton, and Desiring God by John Piper. Finally, at the end of our journey here, on this last shelf, I just have this collection of books by Fyodor Dostoevsky. All right, so that's all the books we have for today. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and I'm really excited to do more book content in the future. I'm planning to do a book review actually on the Screwtape letters, and well, we'll see how that goes, but hopefully I can get that done. Like I said in the beginning, please like, subscribe, and share. And with that, remember to always rejoice.